right. Good morning here in Finland. It's 4:30 here, and I hope that for some of you it is a more reasonable reasonable time. Um, well, what I try to do lately is to go in this book I'm writing. I have about, I don't know, almost 10,000 seed thoughts. And I try to choose some of them or make them up as I go along that will give us an insight, experiential insight into some of these states of consciousness which we are trying to achieve. Different seed thoughts might work for different people. The idea is that it always has to be near your consciousness. In other words, it always has to be an effort as you look out upon the world or into the emotional realm or into the mental realm. Behind all of this has to be this thought that what I'm looking at is actually quite different in reality than what it appears to be. So what we're trying to do is penetrate through the Maya, through the appearance of things, the illusion of things, which we normally take as a reality, and trying to find that that subtle presence, that deep interfusion, which we all are, and which never is absent. However, it can be absent in our consciousness. And what we do is hope to have the continuity of the consciousness of being. The one thing that equates all, that equalizes all, is the raw fact of being. It makes no difference what you are beholding, what you are registering. The fact that you are beholding it or registering it means that it is. And it is this isness which equates all such registrations and makes them the same in being. Not the same qualitatively, that's a whole different ballgame, but the same in the fact that they are. So this is lying behind our efforts, and hopefully it leads to quite a change in consciousness and a sustained change in consciousness. I'd like to, welcome you today. I mean, just run through your names. Happy that you are here. It's Anne, Carmen, Catherine, Eva, Frederick, Helen, Jeremy, Kathy, Luna. Let's see, where am I here? I jumped a little bit there. Luna, Lynn, Maria Christina, Martha, Michael, Myrna, Nikolaus, Rebecca, Sam, Stephen Ambrosish, and Stephen Renneberg. Welcome. Tiffany, Vera, Walter, and then backing us all up here, we have Joe and Brett and myself. Okay, so our philosophy here is called, or I've called it infinitistic philosophy, meaning, that there are no limits to what any being essentially is. And that, of course, we're interested right now in the human being. I call it radical infinitism because it goes to the very root of our identity, which is unbounded. The essence of our identity is unbounded. Now, in the practical world, we are human beings. We have our normal limitations, and we have the possibility of evolving and changing our ring past knot, but we always have a ring past knot. True identity has no ring past knot. We hear in the secret doctrine of the boundless, immutable principle. Well, what is this principle? It's the one and only be-ness, we might say. It's not an existence per se, because existences are bounded. But that's what we are. We are essentially the boundless, immutable principle. And, can we somehow contain the thought of that unboundedness and that immutability, even as we are evolving as tiny, temporarily tiny emanations of the One? That's our question. Can we hold these two possibilities simultaneously? So we have established some foundations as we've gone along. This is our 18th meeting. Whether or not they can continue on an every week basis, I just don't know yet. I always try to do that, but at some point we may have to take a little break. So we're going to apply our meditative powers to certain seed thoughts, and we hope that they will grow into realization. As you know about realization, it's no small thing. It is, if you look at the map here, realization is found upon the 5th level of the nirvanic or spiritual or atmic plane. We use the term very loosely when we say, I realize this, I realize that, but we're talking about the realization of reality, or at least a higher level of reality than we normally can take in. So here it is, realization on the 5th level, followed by things, various cities that only the masters can really apply. And on the map are levels of, I can just call it realization, which pertain even to degrees which are higher than that of the master. But okay, we're happy to be able to have some understanding of that which transpires on the triadal levels. Basically, our consciousness is not really focused on those levels, but as we build the Antakarana, we can be impressed by certain intuitions, certain realizations, now and then, which are found consistently for the masters as they focus on those levels. So really all of this is a great effort to expand our consciousness in uncharted ways. In a way, building the Antakarana is it's a unique adventure for every human being. There's no one really that can tell you exactly how to do that. It's been laid out for us in some very important steps by Master DK, intention, visualization, projection, invocation and evocation, stabilization and resurrection. But the actual substance of the building of the Antakarana into these realizations, that's going to be a unique adventure for each one of us. And in a way, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Well, we've been led to water, and we have to drink in our own way the reality with which we have been presented. So the purpose of our exercises here, not only to expand our consciousness, but to change forever. Well, I don't know about forever because, there are so many mysteries, but there's going to be a new universe always, and we're going to be emanated forth in various forms, and our consciousness will be obscured again and again and again, and yet even at this moment, could we but realize it, our consciousness as the universal logos is not obscured. Well, you mean, what do you mean? I'm just a human being. How can I be that as well? Well, if you go far enough into it, we begin to realize that our identity is a very mysterious factor. And that even while we seem to be very limited on this level, we are not limited in the same way on other levels. I call this dimensional sealing. Like SEA, one thing is sealed from another, you can't penetrate. The idea there is that we are existent on many dimensions simultaneously, but they are as if sealed from each other, so we don't know that that is the case. Maybe from the very highest levels on which we perform, we know it is the case, but from the lower levels, the dimensions are sealed. And eventually there's going to be this continuity of revelation along what I might call the elevator of consciousness. And we will have multi-dimensional consciousness and be able to realize that our present limitations are simply not real in the ultimate sense. So the basic thing we want to change forever here, at least forever in our universe, is our conception of our identity. Even as we necessarily live our conventional identity, we have our name, our job, our health condition, our circumstances, our contacts, and all the rest of it. We have all that. But at the very, very deep level, when a person says, well, who are you? You want to be able to answer in a conventional way, of course, but you also want to be able to answer in a way that is utterly essentialized, and to mean it, and to understand that when all of those conventionalities are peeled away, that what is left remains as that which never changes, and that is pure being. So in a way, this philosophy, radical infinitism, is kind of a war, against the illusion of extension and mobility. I mean, our illusions tell us we are extended in space, we are extended in time, and everything is moving. Well, that's an apparency. That's part of the Mahamaya, and that is what we are presented with during every universe. But what if, of course, extension is an illusion, and both in time and in space, that there's no real time, and there's no real space, and due to immutability, there's no real mobility of parts and pieces either, because there are no real parts and pieces. Well, this thought wars against our usual perceptions. Some people might say, well, listen, this is counterintuitive. Everybody knows, everybody sees what there is, and then you're coming along and you're saying that what apparently is, isn't. But we have to leave our minds and realization faculties free to explore these possibilities. The boundless, immutable principle. If there's no mutation, there's no change, and there's no parts. And everything that seems to change is an aspect of consciousness, and consciousness is an infinite reduction upon reality. Now that's quite a statement. If I say that consciousness in relation to ultimate reality is a huge reduction. And maybe as time goes on, we will understand that more. The ultimate state does not have consciousness per se. It has, well, you know, these words, infinitessentialized beingness. And what that really is, we can only participate in, I suppose, after every Mahapralaya. So we're going to work with a few seed thoughts and work with the disciplines of realization. And hopefully these seed thoughts, if not all of them, then some of them will turn a key for us. And the key may open upon impressions that we just haven't had before. Impressions that seem very remote, or at least quite different from the platitudes that we normally sound in relation to these factors. I mean, you know, we can all say, well, it's all one, it's all unified, we're all related, etc., etc. But those soundings can simply be platitudinous, which means they are a sounding on the mental level, devoid of the realization which should go with the sounding. So we have to move from platitudinous pronouncements about reality, and we all have to do this, you know. You have to start somewhere, and it's going to be a platitude where you start. We have to move from platitudinous pronouncements into the actual realization that, oh my God, that's the truth, you know. And that, I think, is called, in some ways, it's called enlightenment. Probably, you know, maybe you've read a little bit in Zen, you know, they have this idea of the Satori, or of the awakening, of the illumination, of the enlightenment. It depends on what tradition you're in. But suddenly, you're seeing something, and when I say see, you know, I mean that in terms of general consciousness. You're seeing something you didn't see before. And it maybe didn't even suspect before. That's what we're after, that kind of expansion and deepening of the consciousness, which was unsuspected. We have the rain cloud of knowable things, but we also have unknown attributes, DK tells us. And they are known to the higher lives, but they're not known to us. And we want to penetrate into these unknown attributes so they become for us known, immediate facts of our consciousness, straight knowledge, not platitudinous, but real to us. And that's a real adventure in consciousness, and it's even more deeply an adventure in being. So here's a few seed thoughts. You know, it's really hard to pick certain of them out, and with some of them you are familiar, but they need to be repeated, you know. They need to be repeated until we wear thin this veil of illusion. We stand facing the veil of illusion, and we're told by the Tibetan in one of those monadic stanzas that all is illusion, O dweller in the shadows. All conventional factors are ultimately illusion. And we want to penetrate that illusion so that it no longer blinds us. This is a search for sight of reality, and more than even sight of reality, it's a search for identification as reality. So just if, you know, I'm not going to maybe spend quite as long as I have been spending. I know, you know, from a certain point of view that if we get too much verbiage, it can just numb the mind. So I have a few seed thoughts, and I'll just kind of go over them a little bit. Then maybe we'll have an opportunity to say a few things, and then I'll just lead you in a little meditation using at least some of these seed thoughts, and you will approach them in your own way. We're all adventuring in consciousness together, and, well, if we are so fortunate, we are adventuring in life itself. The group onward moves in life. That is Rule 6. We deepen and deepen our the intensity of our appreciation of the factor of life itself. You know, life is sort of like the very essential center of the triangle. You have will, you have love, you have intelligence, but life is all three of them and more. So this idea of how to move onward in life, how to move onward in beingness, we're not going to solve it in this life. I don't think so. But we can have a little bit of an idea of how it should go. And we can get on the trail of it, so to speak. And we can move from unthinking, platitudinous pronouncements into something that has a little reality to it and has the excitement of the reality. So anyway, this one is, we've used this before, reduce every perception to a true point. This is one of the major approaches. It doesn't make any difference what you see, what you realize, what you register. When you boil it all down, it becomes that which is ultimately not expressed in terms of space, time, or motion. It's just an apparency. So almost everything we see it takes time. It is extended in space, usually. And the factors that we perceive are in motion. And somehow we have to realize that no true point in its essence is endowed with space, time, and motion. Only the Mahamaya, the great apparency, is endowed with space, time, and motion. So dimensionality that we're always dealing with, well, my consciousness is now on a higher dimension, and I perceive this and I perceive that, and we must, of course, but it's not really real. It's Mahamayavically real. And what I've done here is I've used all capital letters for the really real, and this capital R, real, is real in universe, but it's not ultimately real. So as we try to collapse things, I've sometimes said, look, if you want to get through the eye of the needle, you can't drag time and space with you. See, the eye of the needle requires a collapse of conventional dimensionality, so that what fits through the eye of the needle is being itself. Of course, that's ahead of us, in days to come. It's the fourth initiation. But it's the beginning of really living, and really living in the cosmic ethers, where the masters have the kind of realization that we can only long for or hope for in our present limited condition. So somehow we have to realize that all of our dimensions are not really real, and that a true point has no real dimension, and yet that true point is. That's why it's not a zero. A zero, a nothing, just isn't. And I'm not talking about the great zero. I'm not talking about the capital zero, the no thing and all that. I'm just talking about nothing, which is inconceivable, really, because the minute you start to conceive nothing, there's something there. But the true point has no real dimension, and yet it is. And the forms that we normally deal with, they are simply, as Kant would say, they are constructs of consciousness. They have to do with how our perceiving mechanism is put together. So, one day we have to realize that the isness of the true point is essentially the isness of the absolute. There's just nothing other than the absolute. It's the one without a second or a third or a fourth, All there is the boundless, immutable principle, and being descends to manifest. That's basically what happens, and then we get this creative illusion we call the Mahamaya. It's a work of art in a way. It's a dance. It's a drama. We're in this cyclically forever, and yet it is all the result of being descending to manifest. Now, how does being descend to manifest? Well, in the old commentary, it doesn't really tell you how being descends to manifest. My own version of this, to be proven useful or not as time goes on, is that being descends to manifest through what I call self-sight. By seeing itself, it becomes Mahamayavic. And then there's quite a difference between seeing oneself and being oneself. So, in a way, being is just infinitely greater than seeing, and seeing is consciousness. Anyway, I think that's how being descends to manifest. So we just have to be able to look around us constantly and reduce everything we see, every person, every object, every state, to that true point. And then, of course, we realize that all the true points are superimposed upon each other. And when you have superimposed true points, you've gotten rid of normal time and you've gotten rid of normal space. So much depends on how we define our terms. The great thinker Voltaire, he was a French philosopher, and mathematician, and basically he said, if any man would converse with me, let him define his terms. Which so often we don't. We just wade right in and we start saying things, and we can be talking about something completely different from what our correspondent is thinking or meaning. So anyway, that's one seed thought, and it's one I work on all the time. Reduce every perception to a true point. In other words, get rid of its time, get rid of its space, get rid of its motion, but don't get rid of its being. It is. That which you perceive is, with the isness of the absolute. Of course, there'll be a time when even that which you perceive is negated in the one and only. But maybe we're not quite there yet. We have no idea while we're in universe, which is like cyclically forever, what is the state or stateless state, or what's it like after Mahapralaya. We've had an infinitude of Mahapralayas forever and ever and ever, apparently, until you begin to realize there's no intervals and there's no time. So probably the truth of things is extremely strange. And we are very limited by our constructs of consciousness, namely time and space and the illusion of motion and the illusion of division and all of that. But it's what we've got, and we have to deal with it, even as we try to negate the reality of it. Now, okay, so that's one seed thought. We'll get to that. I can't really tell you what to do with a seed thought. This is your own creation. This is your own penetration. You're weaving this bridge of light into realization out of your own experience, out of your own substance. So it would be an imposition for me to say, do this, do that, because probably something within you is so much wiser than anything that I might possibly say about what to do about it. You're going to find your own way in because you yourself are the very interiority that you are looking for. I am the seeker and the sought. So we have to have trust in the deep self. That's what the Buddha said. He just said it as if, it was a piece of advice to any young person coming along and starting a job. Well, rely upon yourself. Oh, okay, rely upon yourself. But this was the subject of his last sermon. Rely upon yourself. And what is that self that you're relying upon? It's no conventional self. It's an all-knowing, all-being essence that has the fullness of everything that you, as a tiny emanation, will ever need to reascend along the emanative line into higher and higher states of consciousness which you once owned and even now own. So we have to trust each other. We will get there, and we will find our own way. Well, not only will we get there, we're already there, but we will we will get to the there where we already are, and it'll be like like DK says, that revelation is the revelation of that which always is. So the deeper levels of consciousness and what they might reveal are really strange compared to our normal levels of consciousness. Okay, here's another seed thoughts, maybe a little bigger. Realize that though the universal true point is essentially dimensionless, it contains a huge but finite number of true points. Maybe this is more the point. The you which you know yourself to be is one of those true points. And yet, as well, you are the universal true point itself. Now, by the universal true point, I mean the identity of the one and only being in cosmos. I don't mean the one and only beingness. I mean the one and only being in cosmos. I mean the universal logos. So, this looks like the ultimate in inflation. What do you mean you're the universal logos? Well, it has to be understood philosophically. We're not talking about that we have the power or the scope or the penetration that great being has in our present limited state. We're not saying that. We're talking about essentials. So this one point in all the universe contains not an infinite number, but a huge number, a finite number of true points, and each one of us is one of those. And so, it's like when our points retract along the emanative stream, we discover that we are one of those true points, and we begin to amalgamate with all other true points until we fuse in consciousness with the one and only true point. So, whatever we seem to be, seeming is not good enough. You have to live with seeming. I seem to be this, I seem to be that. Okay. And if you want to be what people would call sane in the world, you have to be conventional. You have to talk in terms of what the construct of consciousness reveals, because then you can be understood. But ultimately, we are not that. Ultimately, and we're looking for ultimates here. We're trying to scrape away all of our illusions. We are this universal true point, and of course, to ponder it is more than to just talk about it. So whatever we seem to be, we are ultimately in universe, the universal true point. And you wonder how it is that points can be contained within points when they have no dimensionality per se, and yet that is what I am asserting here, that all apparent points, which all the beings of any cosmos are contained within the one universal true point, and that there's a great going forth into multiplicity and a great retraction into the one. It's trying to solve the problem of the one and the many. And we can say, okay, well, we are one of the many, and that's true. but we are also all of the many, and we are also the one out of which the many came. And these things have to be so cultivated in our realization that in fact we do come to realize it. So we are a true point. And this is a little interesting. Here's how it goes in a more practical sense. Who becomes a planetary logos? Solar angels become planetary logoi. According to the Tibetan, it's a very interesting idea, but they don't become planetary logoi by themselves, individually. They become planetary logoi in groups. So a whole group of solar angels along a particular ray, and a certain number of them and so forth, somehow coalesce and become a planetary logos. And if you think about that, it hints a little bit at what I'm talking about. Here we are, all of these true points, and yet as they begin to retract towards the central point where the one point stands, they somehow blend and fuse together. And all of this in a sense that is non-dimensional. So there are many little paradoxes here, but suffice it to say, if I was going to put it like this, maybe simplify this whole thing, and I would just say, I am the one and the many. Maybe that would simplify the whole inquiry here. Now we don't have much trouble thinking of ourselves as the egoistic one. Here I am, and what was my last life, and the life before that, and what will my next life be, and blah blah blah, and it's my. I'm talking in terms of a ring pass knot all the time. But what if we could expand our ring pass knot and really realize that our identity is different from that which is contained within this ring pass knot of bounded perception? I am the one. And I've often said this. This is another good sea thought, I think. I'll do it that way. I am as much you as I am myself. And this seems like counterintuitive. Obviously, I am who I am, and you're you who you are. But I'm as much you as I am myself. Okay, well, that's the kind of thing that has to be worked on until the great feeling of interfusion comes over us, and we are able then to live in a greater identity. Okay, now this one I've used before. To be you is infinitely greater than to love you. Well, we all know that loving is really good. That's what we're here to learn in the curriculum of the soul, and I think we hardly know anything about love when we compare the kind of love that the Christ has for all human beings on the planet, and we can go further. What is the love of this great second-rate being, the Solar Logos? Those are cosmic factors that are you just realize how little you know. But is it, and I want to say this, that when we get into that sense of being the other, the love goes with it. It's not like we leave love behind, we leave intelligence behind. No. Or will. No, all those things are included in the being of another. So, the thought here is that you can only love another. You see, well, maybe you can love yourself, but then the self is another as well. There's the lover and the loved. So, I love you. This, that. It's another. But what happens if there really is no other? Really? Okay, only apparently so. What if all... let me put it this way, if I can. What if... I'll coin words here. What if all otherhood is only illusory? And there is no otherhood. You can love another, but you can be the one. So what is it that apparently merges with that apparent other when you be that other? And I'm not going to say become. I can say, well, you become the other. Maybe in consciousness it looks like you're becoming the other, but in fact you're already it. So there's nothing to become. It's just an illusion of graded consciousness. You already are the other. So this simple little seed thought has much to offer us if we ponder it in the right way. Sometimes someone I really love, love, I feel the love. Then I take it further and I enter into the being of that apparent other until the otherness of the other disappears. And the love has not necessarily gone away, okay? I mean, you can reclaim that at any time. But there's a whole new phase of, can we call it relationship, when there's not two? See, because relationship requires a this and a that. So what is it then, really? If I say to be you is infinitely greater than to love you, or even to know you, I could put that too. How would we get into that? How would you find your way into that? How would I find my way into that? Okay, that's another one of those seed thoughts, and it can be, it can be anything. It doesn't even have to be something you like or someone you like. This is interesting. We talked about this early on, and we talked about how to gather even someone for whom you had repulsion, and yet you entered into the being of them. We end up being the one who's totally responsible for everything. You say, well, I didn't do that. That person did that. But who is that person? You see, there's only one responsible character, actor, in the whole universe, and we are responsible. Okay, so to be you is infinitely greater than to love you. That's something we can work on. And this is one that I like too. And to you as may we say that we are love. Then, well, we are love. We are knowledge. I am the light of the world. I am the love of the world. The Hermes, Alice Bailey tells us that Hermes, the Buddha, and the Christ all said, I am the light of the world. Usually we think, well, there's the light of the world, and it comes in on my consciousness, but we don't identify as the light of the world. So we can say that anything's included in life, we are. We are the knowledge, we are the love, and we are the will. But even more than all those, we are that factor than which there is none other. So it does take it to you a little bit beyond I love you. It's like being in the love and being the love. But of course, those are words. And whenever words are presented, they have to be meditated upon before they become impressive realities. And that's what we're here to do. No one can do this for you. You can hear a bunch of things that I say or someone else says or whatever. Until you meditate them into reality, they are just words. And that's, of course, what we want to do. These are the disciplines of realization. I always remember, I used to read Manly Palmer Hall. He was a great scholar and did so much to popularize the ageless wisdom. And he talked about the disciplines of realization, and I realized that that's absolutely a true way of speaking of things. In order to realize, you have to discipline your consciousness, and you have to persist, and you have to wear away the conventional illusions. I like this one. Nothing can escape your being it, or what can I say? Can I do it this way? your being it, or my being it, or our being it. Nothing can escape. Usually all kinds of things seem to be outside the circle. And you say, well, I apply what I know to these things, but not to those things. But nothing, there's nothing whatsoever, no existence whatsoever can escape your being it, my being it. There is no outside you, there's only, in a sense, inside you. So you are inclusive beingness. You are, well, I would even say this, you are all inclusive beingness, and as that you include all as all. Now, all as all means the infinite potential working out as the allness that is found in the universe. So realize that though you may be repelled by an object or state of energy, you cannot cease being it, and it cannot cease being you. Now that's a little bit uncomfortable for some of us because we like to discriminate. This is good, that is bad. I don't associate with bad people, I associate with good people, and the teachings are filled with all that kind of thing, Choose for your good company those who really realize divinity and all of that. You have to discriminate in the world of Mahamaya. But when you go farther with it, there's just nothing outside yourself. I call this sometimes divine solipsism. Solipsism is it's an approach in philosophy where you think there's only one self, and it's usually considered to be a great illusion, and that one self is you. Well, that solipsism turns out to be, I think, the greatest truth. Notice that it has the word S-O-L in it. Soul. S-O-L. The Son. The only being. So, in rule number 9, hiding all difference, blotting out all form. That's actually what we're trying to do here. We're trying to see in such a way that difference, although it presents itself to the Mahamayavic consciousness, is understood as not real. We can overcome difference, and we can, in fact, blot out all form. And that's right there in rule number 9, The Tibetan speaks of these things. So suppose I went to page 20 or something like that. It's a little bit farther. But here it is. Let the group know there is no color, only light, and then let darkness take the place of light, hiding all difference, blotting out all form. Well, these are things that we are supposed to do. And if DK tells us that our group perception has to hide all difference and blot out all form, we have to ask ourselves, how can we really do that? Because we're not going to become totally impractical, where we cannot deal with distinctions in the world, and where one form from another is not discriminable. We're not going to do that. But on a deeper level, the apparent difference has to be hidden from us, and the forms, the many forms which merge into the one form, those many forms cannot appear to have their own being, as it were. We have to know this on some deep level. Okay. Now, maybe just a couple more things. I don't know if I'm going to go over all of these seed thoughts. Just have a couple more. I call you-agos universes ago, and you-to-bes universes to be. So imagine 1,000,000 you-agos. You are there. You were there. Imagine 1,000,000 you-to-bes. You will be there. Not the you that you know yourself to be within a particular ring pass. Not, I look like this in the mirror, I have these capabilities. All of those are concrete. No, it's the essential you. You will be there. There was no time when you were not. There will be no time when you will not be. So, how many universes ago can we go? Well, we can't go with any specificity. We don't know the content of former universes. We've just got this one to deal with. But we do know from the idea of the great breath that at least in the Mahamayavic realm, there are limitless former universes and always limitless universes to be, and always the identity that we are is right there. You might say, well, I was born here, I die here, or maybe I'm born in this universe and die with this universe. Well, that's not true. Beyond the coming and going of birth and pralaya is the consistency of being. And no matter what we might be able to conceive, we can start it by saying, okay, well, let's just say Julius Caesar is having a meeting of his generals. Okay, I am there. Or, a pharaoh is discussing something, or there's something going on in the Egyptian court. I am there. Or I can go back and say, well, now we're little evolved Homo sapiens, maybe found in some kind of cave or other. I am there. You see, you can't get rid of yourself, is what I've been trying to say in a strange kind of way. You say, oh, let's just blot it all out and I'll be relieved I won't have my being anymore. Well, you can't do that, So I'm going to say that you cannot get rid of yourself, which is ultimately the self. It's the one permanent factor, which maybe is the reason why every once in a while that self has to go to sleep. It's just too much, So and even if it slept for gazillions of years, it would be like nothing compared to eternity. So, to get the idea of eternity in our consciousness, this is a big struggle, to figure out what eternity really is. But remember what DK says, if you want to be a third degree initiate, you have to live in the eternal and know the self as one. Live in the eternal and know the self as one. That's just the beginning of it, you see. So, let's see if I can find that beautiful mantra that probably you know. Live in the eternal self as one. Well, I think we're going to find it here. May the holy ones whose disciple I am show me the light I seek. Give me the strong aid of their compassion and their wisdom. There is a peace which passeth understanding. It abides in the hearts of those who live in the eternal. There is a power which maketh all things new. It lives and moves in those who know the self as one. May that peace brood over us, that power uplift us, till we stand where the one initiator is invoked, till we see his star shine forth. So you can see that this wonderful mantra, which I hope we will all memorize, is preparation for the third initiation, as it was one day be presented to us. Live in the eternal, mostly we don't, right? Know the self as one, mostly we don't, and that's where our work really comes in. So, there you are in all of these universes, apparent universes, and the scene is always changing, but you still have the feeling of ever being present. The you as you are ever the same, even though the scene is changing all the time. And then I finally ask, what for you are the implications that you are immutably the same forever? You'd have to think about that. What for you are the implications that you are immutably the same as being, pure being, forever? So, I say, realize paradoxically that you can be and in fact are ever the same, even though you as you are forever cyclically different. You're always going to have different appearance, but you're forever the same. So that's one of those really big paradoxes, okay? And realize that your sameness lacks nothing. You say, well, I want to be different, I want to grow, I want to have more. Well, your sameness already has everything that ever could be. It has the absolute infinitude. It is the absolute infinitude. So I call it ultimate infinite essentiality. All right, so these are some thoughts about some of the seed thoughts that we're going to use in our little meditation. And before we get into that, I'll give you a chance to say something, ask a question, make a comment, whatever, and then we'll simply have a little meditation where you can approach these matters in your own way. So, is there anybody that would like to ask or say something? I had, and Brett, I'll probably need your help because for some reason, once I press a question mark, I lose all capacity to press further question marks. So, either writing something.
We do have a question.
Okay, and that's not from TU, is it? Because I dealt with that.
Yes, it is.
Okay, is there a new question?
Okay. No.
No. Okay, so I dealt with that we are, yes, I am the love of the world, I am the will of the world, I am the light of the world. All of those things are included in the what that I am. Okay, so are there any thoughts that you would like to share at this point? Here's another question. It's from Tiffany. So maybe you can. I can't make it come up, and I don't know why, Brett. So maybe you can tell me what Tiffany says.
Tiffany says, "How can you strive for something and remain present, being here now?"
Okay, so let me get. I lost one or two words. How can you?
How can you strive for something and remain present, being here now?
Yeah, well, that's the question, isn't it? I mean, because we're two things. The relative self is which has its own limitations, is always striving to expand its ring past not, and sometimes we have to identify as the relative self. In other words, it's not allowed that we drop our striving. We can say, hey, I'm already everything and I'm present, and therefore all I have to do is be. But that's not how the game is played. Every universe is a sort of a creative act, and we have to play by the rules that we have created in the very beginning, the rules which apply to limited beings. We are limited beings as well as everything. So in our capacity as limited beings, we develop Mahamayavic capacities. We always can do a little more. We're a little better at this. We always, improve. Even though it should be kept in mind that in the ultimate being there is no improvement, and that all of the improvement of our personal self is in the great drama, the great dance, the great play. It's all happening within our creation. So we have to have two identities, Tiffany, at the same time. We have to always know that we are the one and only, and yet we are responsible for our personal Mayavic self. And by Maya, I mean illusion, that things are not what they seem. We seem to be a certain self. We're all one, but we seem to be a certain self. And we have to operate with both of them simultaneously. So I would just say that we do it by doing it. We're always going to try to improve, and yet in the background of it all, we realize that we're already there. And here's the question. Can the consciousness contain that apparent difference? And I would say that's up to every person. Look, I'm into all this stuff for many years now, and that doesn't mean for a moment that I, as a limited, emanated being, stop striving. I'm always striving as a limited being, always trying to expand my ring past knot, even though I realize that ultimately everything I could possibly want, I am in an essential sense. Can we contain that? That's something that every person has to try to work out for himself or herself to see if we can do that. I hope it gives a little thought anyway. Thank you, Tiffany. Okay, are there any other thoughts or questions that you have? Look, I'm not saying that all of this is easy. Yes, Tiffany has more to say?
Tiffany continues, how does desire cease to exist in that striving?
Well, Master Morya says desire never ceases to exist. It just depends on whether we're talking about low desire or high desire. Desire is what makes the many back into the one. So from a certain point of view, desire does not cease to exist, ever, until there's a complete unification. But low desire, where you want to hold to yourself the fragments of reality, that ceases. In other words, what we do is we exchange our lower desires for higher and higher desires until we re-become in full consciousness the one we have always been. So, a planetary logos has desire, a solar logos has desire, and greater beings have desire, because desire is what makes all those beings reunite into a unity and finally into the one. So I'm never saying that we really get rid of desire. I'm saying we get rid of desire for the three lower worlds, and then it goes on, and there is a desire for higher and higher states until we finally achieve. And then at the end, right before pralaya, before every pralaya, there's no more desire, because the design of the universe has been fulfilled. And we've been doing this forever, apparently. If you listen to Madame Blavatsky and the second fundamental of the secret doctrine, there is a law of periodicity, and there's a great breadth, and the production of universes has been going on forever in terms of time. So let's just say, I think the most practical thing, Tiffany, is to say this: get rid of lower desires and substitute for them higher desires. I think that is the practical way of dealing with that question. Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to speak or to write something? Okay, there's Walter. Go ahead, Walter.
Yes, in contemplating the ideas and essences being presented, it seems like that there's an exercise, or it stretches our concepts of duality. In other words, some of the seeds presented, it's like we are, or I am absolute, but at the same time I am limited, or I am one, but I am
many.
An aspect many, and it seems like that the whole concept in working with these and unifying seems related to some esoteric considerations, like the goal of evolution, of the unification of spirit and matter. And it seems like that one of the things that at least I find inspirational is trying to consider the unification of, in other words, not thinking of it saying like this is the one and this is the many, but trying to unify it into one perspective. So like in alignment with your inventing words, you call it the one minyness.
The one minyness,
in other words,
yes.
Have just one single vibration that encompasses both. And similarly, like if there's the spirit matter, or however we want to consider it. And so maybe it just seems to me that trying to take the dualities being considered and focusing on them together, it can be useful, and may be a way that we are increasing our ability to work with duality or unify the polarities.
Right. I find what you have said here to be very useful. And, if you have your own verbal syntheses for these things, like the one manyness, it will mean something to the creator of such things. We don't want to ever be stuck in duality. We have to realize that there are ways to reconcile it, and ultimately they are reconciled in a absoluteness. It's only when universe is on, so to speak, the big inning, it's only when the universe is on that we have anything that we can call duality. In the absolute, there is none of that. But just the mere fact that there is a universe is under the second law, second fundamental of the secret doctrine, the law of periodicity, and this automatically implies duality. But if we can reconcile the tension that occurs in our mind when we think of the dualities and find ways to somehow unify the apparent dualities, then that's the direction that we're trying to move in. I am the one, and yet I am the part, and yet I am the many. To somehow realize all those things simultaneously, this is the direction in which we are heading. And, like you've done it yourself, you'll find your own way to do it. So we will not be satisfied with leaving ourselves in a condition of irreconcilable duality. We will not find, we will not remain in that condition. We will find ways to reconcile apparent dualities, and not just mentally, but we will find the experience of reconciled dualities descending upon us. So I appreciate your thoughts, Walter. Anybody else that would like to say or write something? What is all this stuff? What is all this? If you think about it, it's a very deep search for what we really are. It's so radical in a way. It's saying, whatever I think I am in a concrete way, I am not ultimately that. I am only, in time and space and Maya, temporarily that. So we're just really peeling away the layers, peeling away, until we're left with that which cannot be peeled away. So it's a real plunge, a real search into what Paul Tillich, the theologian, he called it the ground of all being. The ground of all being. It's really true that man creates God in his own image. A lower consciousness, thinking about God and all the rest of it, will project his own qualities, many of them not very good, onto God. God becomes a vengeful, wrathful, deity. He wants you to go to war. He wants you to, this has been going on for a long time. That's just man projecting his own limitations upon the deity. But when someone like Paul Tillich is talking, a real theologian talking about the ground of all being, it's obviously a much greater, more refined consciousness talking about what deity can be. Somewhere I ran into a definition, I can't find it again, but maybe someone can, of God by Buckminster Fuller. Buckminster Fuller was defining God as he saw it, and in it was wonderful. And you just saw the wonderful mind of Buckminster Fuller as he attempted to relate what was the nature of deity. So I don't think we human beings have a handle on what deity is at all. I think we do the best we can with the kind of qualities and perceptual abilities we have, but it's a work in progress, and we're ever ascending in our conception of what the deity is, and not just the deity, but a whole ladder of deities, and finally the absolute about which, in a way, one can say nothing true. It's a problem. But anyway, on we go. Okay, Suzanne. Suzanne? Yep, go ahead.
Suzanne? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I can't read it. You have to do it for me.
She says, we are sacred fragments in any incarnation. Was it not said, having pervaded the universe with a fragment of myself, I remain?
Indeed. Sacred fragments. I think that's a good way of thinking about emanations. The interesting thing is that the fragments are still connected to the source. In other words, it's not like a disjuncted fragment that's out there. It has its own emanative connection to the source which sent it forth. So having pervaded the entire universe with many fragments of myself, and here's how it goes. The one fragment, of course, is the universe. having I, the absolute, let's say, having pervaded the entire universe with a fragment of myself, and that's all you can do when you have absolute infinity, because the universe is finite. So there's the fragment, and out of that one fragment come all the many fragments, but they are continuously connected fragments. That's the beauty of emanation. It's not disjointed, it's not cut out. It always has its link back to the source which sent it forth. So I like, Suzanne, the application of that old saying to this subject. Of course, it's also applicable to the soul, isn't it? You know, the having pervaded the entire universe of the personality with a fragment of myself, I, the soul, remain. You see, so it has multiple utility as far as I can see. That's a good one. Whatever is meaningful to you, whatever will stretch your ring past knot into new realizations. Remember, we don't have the map. We can say, oh, well, I know where I'm going. Well, it's not like you can really read the map and know what the next surprise in the realm of being is going to be. So we're pushing on, expanding our ring past knot, ever ready to be surprised by the possibilities which we will inevitably encounter, only to discover, of course, that we already know these things. So it's just like a recognition. We have cognized them already as the one, and as the fragment, we are recognizing them again. Thank you, Suzanne. Okay. Anything else, friends? Maybe, you know, I'm trying not to keep us here for a long, a long time. But I'd like us to have the opportunity to simply ponder some of these seed thoughts in your own way. And this is the way of making them more real. You know, every week I look at all these seed thoughts, you know, and I say, what is it possible to select for the members of the group so that they will find it of interest or find different ways in. I'm not saying I always do the best job, but as soon as I get all these seed thoughts organized, you know, they'll be in categories and things of that nature, and you'll be able to use them every day, just for a few minutes every day, and penetrate more deeply into the underlying reality. It's in a way one method of building the Antakarana. There are many methods. DK has given us a wonderful kind of second-rate method of building the Antakarana. There are other ways of doing it as well. Okay, if I don't see anybody... wait, I see a hand. And that hand is Sheldon. Okay, Sheldon, please go ahead.
Well, just a general, I guess, thought, comment, Michael. I guess because consciousness is so important to me at this time.
Yes.
As I hear what you're saying, I'm always looking for how I can make use of this in this ever onward, forward movement. And the way it sorts out for me is, as I can identify, let's say, with any larger whole, and know, even though I don't know what it means to know this exactly, that I am that. I can work in some way from that level on me, who is still a fragment, ascending, you might say, evolving toward that whole, returning home. And I think that's a very powerful, not just incentive, but a powerful realization that I never really lack, even though I certainly can feel it looking from the bottom up, what I lack. I never really lack what it takes to move closer forward toward that greater whole of which I'm a part. So holding these thoughts together in my mind works very well. It's not exactly a back and forth. It's like holding the more absolute realization as always present. My energy, though, is in the ascension.
Well, we have to do. I think we have to do both. You know,
it's a larger part of me. Yeah.
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, you know, we've been given the ageless wisdom, and it's just filled with training of what we, the fragment, must do in order to expand our ring past nod and raise our consciousness and become more potent and more effective. And we just never can drop that. At the same time, the that other perspective, sort of looming in the background, I think can even strengthen the striving.
Yes. Exactly. That's my point. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Sheldon. Thank you. Well, yeah, all of this has to be useful, and if it doesn't improve the quality of our life, the strength of our will, and the extent of our love, and the depth of our knowledge, well, it's not useful. But I do believe that it will do all those things. I don't believe it will do it overnight, and I do believe it is not an easy path, because we're dealing with many apparently intangible things, But they are so fundamental that we should have some kind of awareness that they do exist, and then I think it will enhance all the other things that we have to do in the relative world. Even if it's just a few minutes a day where that identification comes over you, Eventually, we're told, I think I've said this, that the masters who graduate from this planet, particularly, are masters of identification. This is something about this planet that really teaches its superior beings the art of identification. So we're all coming to that point. We are, what do we call here on Earth School, adjudicators between the pairs of opposites. And the pairs of opposites, in a way, are spirit and matter, soul and personality. And we're not going to remain with them separate. We're going to find a way to fuse them by means of being that which is neither of the pairs of opposites and yet both. So it's a particular skill that we can develop on this planet, and really have to. And the Christ made that great statement. Was it in John 17? Is that what it was? Where DK said it's probably the most potent expression of identification that we can find in our literature. So, even in the Christian Bible and in the statements of the Christ are these statements of identification and what it is he had achieved. I in thee, and thou in me, and we in them. You remember that, probably, having read it, He really is in that state where there's such a complete identification between him and his students, and the Father and him, and the Father and the disciples. It shows you what can be achieved, especially along the second ray line, I think. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Well, let's have a little meditation, and it's going to be simple, I hope. And you go at it in your own way, right? You do it in your own way. Whether I'll do all 5 of these, I don't know, but maybe just a couple. We'll see. Excuse me. So here we are. We've been thinking about these deep matters, and we relate to each other now on a deeper level. We are all, let us say, souls on the higher mental plane, from which we feel a certain unity with each other, no matter where we may be: Australia, New Zealand, Europe, the Americas. We just feel that unity. And that unity is maybe achieved when we imagine the center of our consciousness to be in the central fire, in the jewel in the lotus, we're right in that extension of the monad, and from that point of focus, we are overcoming the apparent time and space which normally separates us. We're moving beyond the personal level into a more planetary level and beyond. It's as if together our mind can embrace the planet, our love can embrace the planet, our will can embrace the planet, and we are, in a way, extensions of the will, love, and mind of our planetary logos. What we do then becomes part of the divine plan. Until we enter that place where as much of pure being as we can appreciate can be accessed, and this would be some fragment or some small aspect of the wholeness of monadic awareness, and in that we can all move beyond the feeling of unity with each other. It's another step into a kind of sameness or identicality with each other, as each other. And remember, at least I have found it so, that your heart's centers, when activated or somehow imagined, help with such realizations. The heart between the shoulder blades, the heart and the head, the monadic heart center, that is the egoic lotus, and the type of heart which the monad itself is. So, with this sense that something of pure being is now pervading our consciousness. We'll take a few of these seed thoughts and try them in your own way, but not as a personality, because already you have raised your level of identification. You are a point of awareness which detects the factor of being. So I will not take these necessarily in order, just dwell on this thought as you find yourself impressed by the beingness of the monad, the one within you. And we'll begin with this one. Nothing can escape my being it. I will maybe use the word my instead of your. We say that to ourselves. Nothing can escape my being it. And go about this in your own way and see the various things you imagine, whether they can be prevented from escaping your being them. And keep the heart's alignment, when you do that. It doesn't make any difference whether it's a tangible something revealed by the outer senses or whether it's a more subtle something, a feeling or a thought. It cannot escape your being it. we have to realize how extremely inclusive this statement is. Nothing and no one can escape my being it or them. And if we could do this, we could say with the ancient stanza, I dwell within a world of unity. I know all souls are one. And we know that it goes back to that second ray mantra, naught is but me. But to say it and to realize it may be two different things. And along the same line, we can use this one. To be you is infinitely greater than to love you. To be you is infinitely greater than to love you. There are corollaries here, corollaries. You might say there is no space in you where I do not exist. So what will happen is the world will no longer be revealed as other or as alien or as separate, but the interfusion that you are, that I am, will be everywhere. Remember, even in the definition of harmlessness, the expression of the life of the man who realizes himself to be everywhere. You can even use a seed thought like this. Very simple, but evocative. Everywhere and at all times. And that fits right in with what the Tibetan has said. Nothing can escape my being it. To be you is infinitely greater than to love you, though love is absolutely necessary, as is will, as is knowledge, but we're breaking some boundaries here. Love is still dealing with finitudes. Being is knocking at the door of infinitude. That will be, I think, enough. We don't need to go into all of them. But we will, being practical, realizing that light, love, and power are emanations of pure being, we will sound together the great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Okay, friends, thank you for meditating together on these matters. And remember, it is up to you. Having been given some indications, as we have been given in the great teachings of the world, we have to find our own way in. The Master is the rare efflorescence of a generation of inquirers. And that Master inquired the way of himself. So if it means enough to you to uncover the presence, the reality, which lies beneath and within all appearances, you will find your way in. So will I, so will we all. And when some incarnations elapse, we will find ourselves closer to the center, identified as the center, functioning from the center, in a different position in consciousness, and fully capable of realizing the presence of being. That is what will emerge for us. So meanwhile, I want to thank you for being here, all of you, and I keep on saying every week, I just don't know. Christmas is getting pretty close, and the Morya Federation, is taking in students, and if any of you perhaps are not yet members of the Morya Federation and you would like to join us in our quest for esoteric knowledge and the application of that knowledge in service, you are always more than welcome at our MoryaFederation.com website. We have 3 applications meditation quest. It's about a 1-year program. Great Quest, a 2-year program in esoteric psychology. And then the advanced program Quest Universal. 5 years minimum, I would say. And, depending on how much Alice Bailey you've read and how much you're into the Ageless Wisdom, the right program for you would appear. I've been studying all my life, it seems, and I certainly, for 50 years, have been studying these matters. And the Tibetan, of course, is marvelous in his presentation of the wisdom. It just expands your mind so much and your consciousness. So if we have an opportunity to go deeper into these matters in these very pressing years, the last 10 years of the Forerunner, when humanity's consciousness has to be transformed from the inside out, if we can participate in that transformation and learning and sharing, offer something to humanity which it didn't see before, it's a very, very worthy and necessary objective. So it would be great to see some of you who may not yet be members of the Federation to join us and accept the burden of additional study and meditation and so forth, all to the good when it comes to increasing our capacity for service. We begin on the 21st, always on the solstice. It might be a little bit of the 22nd. I'll hold a meditation for all members of the school. I always do. And then we will move forward more deeply into the Ageless Wisdom. And in this particular program, we move more deeply into the realization of being. You can do several things at the same time. DK is always telling us to do that, several things at the same time. In the advanced meditator, it becomes possible. And so onward we go. Thank you, everyone, and I say goodbye to you, just in making it possible for you to say goodbye too. I start from the top and Brett from the bottom, and
Bye, Michael.
bye, and thank you so much.
Bye, Michael. Thank you very much.
Bye, Michael. Thank you very much.
Bye, friends.
Bye, Michael. Bye, everybody else, too.
Thank you, Michael.
Bye.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
We can't really say goodbye ever, can we? Not really. Not possible. I can't get you unmuted, Sheldon, but I'll assume, I don't know why I can't, but anyway, I try. So, farewell, and maybe next week we will go on with these things, and but do practice in the week. Take a few minutes out a day to think some strange thoughts, which may just open a door to who knows what. Okay? We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Michael.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.